Welcome to Urban Dharma, the podcast, where suffering is optional. Hi, this is Reverend Kusala coming to you from downtown Los Angeles, from the International Buddhist Meditation Center. Last night I had the honor and privilege of interviewing Reverend Echo. Reverend Echo is the abbot of Shasta Abbey. And what you're about to hear is that interview. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope you find it useful. Now, the interview with Reverend Echo, the abbot of Shasta Abbey.
You wanted me to answer some other questions. May I ask again what they were? I've talked a little bit about her and about our place.
Well, about you.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find your teacher, and how did you end up at Shasta Abbey?
I was originally taught as a Roman Catholic, and I left that. And during my high school years, I studied Eastern cultures and religions. And when I got to studying Buddhism, it changed all of my ideas about what religion was and what religious practice could be. And as like many teenage boys at the time, I forgot about it until I returned to the United States. I'd been living in Europe for 6 years. And I went to college and I began to study it again, and then I began to learn to meditate and to actually be drawn to practice. And I realized quickly that if I was going to really practice Buddhism, and I was drawn to Zen Buddhism, I would have to find a teacher. And in those days, there was very little written on the subject, and there were very few places in the United States where you could actually go and study with someone who was a Zen teacher or a Zen master. And picture my naivete when I had no idea in those days that Zen masters were monks, that they were monastics. So I went to one place and I wrote to another place, and neither of those worked out very well. I was in college. And then I wrote to this new place which had just started that was called Shasta Abbey. And they wrote back and invited me to come. And I came to the very pink place, which was in the process of being repainted, but we were repainting for about 6 or 7 years, as I remember. There was so much pink. Even the toilets were painted pink. And I came and I realized that whatever it was I was looking for, I had found it there. And I found a practice that I felt I could really do. And in meeting Reverend Master, I felt that she was the first person who really understood what it was that I wished to do. I didn't understand it myself. And not only that, but she was completely capable of teaching me how to do it. So I asked her if I could become her disciple, and she said that I could, and that the best way to do that was to be a monk, and did I want to do that? And like many young people, like some young people in those days and at that time, I spoke without thinking, and I said, sure. And ordained, and was there for about a year when I began to have second thoughts. So I ran away for about 10 months. Not in the middle of the night. I said that I was leaving. But after I'd been away for 10 months, I realized I was 20 years old at that point. I ordained when I was 19. I realized that, in fact, although it was going to be very hard, and I had no idea how I was going to do it, that I really wanted to do it. So I went back, and I have been there ever since, until this very day. And I felt then, and I still believe today, that whether it is one's intention to become a monastic or whether it is one's intention to be a layperson, either is according to one's karma, and that one can fully and completely practice Buddhism, Buddhist meditation, the practice of the Buddhist precepts, and applying the Dharma in one's everyday life. And am happy to say that I've continued to do that to this very day, and hope to continue to do it for a long time to come. Mm-hmm.
Now, to say somebody comes up to you and says, Reverend Master Ecko, I really want to be a monk at Shasta Abbey. What do I have to do?
Well, I would say, if I did not know the person, I would say, why don't you stay with us for a while and let's get to know you. And we would have the person live as a guest, and the monastic community would observe them and see as best we can what sort of a person they are and what their character is like, and spend a considerable amount of time doing that. You know, I am reluctant nowadays to say to someone, sure, you know, just come, because we've had a lot of experience with that, and that has very mixed results. And the people who come to be monks in particular have to be very strong psychologically. They have to have a firm character, and they have to have a very deep aspiration to do monastic training, which is difficult. And they have to be willing to practice the Buddhist precepts, and especially monastic precepts, with a great amount of diligence and commitment. Once I knew the person, and I had felt that they indeed had as we would call it, an aspiration for the way, I would probably suggest that they go away for a while and think about it. And having thought about it for a while, see if they still want to do that. And if they still want to do it, I would have them come back and spend more time with us and repeat the process all over again. And again, just get to know them. Maybe 2 or 3 out of 4 people will not get past that point and would say, I'd rather be a lay trainee, in which case they can come and stay for as long as they would like and practice with us. But for the one person who says they still wish to be a monastic, I would then give them a very long and highly invasive questionnaire, asking them all sorts of very, very personal questions about themselves and their life, and see what they say about that, with the understanding that they are entering into a spiritual contract with the community, and it behooves them to tell literally the truth. And having written the questionnaire myself, I know all the areas that can potentially turn into problems, as do the other experienced senior monks there. And we go through that process, and we also discuss their health in minute detail, and all the other personal aspects of their lives. And they have to be single and unmarried. If a person is married, I won't even consider the matter. If they are in a relationship of any kind, I would not ask them to stop their relationship, but I would also not consider it. And I would want to wait until the person had been out of a relationship and by themselves for about 2 years. And then, if they seem to still at this point want to do it, and still appear to be able to answer all the questions to our satisfaction, and we're deeply picky, and they're in decent health, and they have no debts or any dependents, then we will accept them on a trial basis. And they will come, and this is now someone we know reasonably well. They'll come and stay with us as what we call a postulant. And a postulant wears robes, but has not performed ordination. And they don't wear the Buddhist kesa, which is what I'm wearing. And their postulancy would last approximately a year, maybe more. We've gone as long as 2 years with some people. And then if they make it through that.
When they're a postulant, do they have certain chores at the monastery?
Yes, they would live in with the monastic community.
Okay.
But we have an area of the monastery that's only where only the monastics go, which is roughly half of the property. And that's where their private quarters are. And the person would live in with the community, and they are, we have a traditional system of seniority, and they are the most junior in the community. And everyone watches them and treats them as someone who is sincere and who is going to be making a deeply serious commitment. And everyone helps that person to see if they really want to do this or not, and encourages them when they can and exhorts them when they need it. And after a year or two has gone by, they are suitable for ordination, and they still are determined, and we wish to do it, then they would actually do their first ordination and enter as a novice monk. And a novice monk lasts 5 years minimum. And then during that time, they are wearing robes, they are living the life of the monastics, and they are receiving instruction and classes and learning what it means to be a Buddhist monk, participating in all the activities of our community. There is no privacy. They live in the meditation hall, and which is in the traditional Japanese system was called a sodo, which is platforms with cupboards. And they keep all their things in one cupboard. That's what they come with. They have to get rid of everything else. And obviously we put a divider down the hall at night and separate men and women. We have a very, very strict rule of celibacy from the moment they actually come as a postulant. And they will live in that meditation hall as long as they're physically able to do that for approximately 5 years. And they live out of a little cupboard, and they learn how to make their own body and mind the meditation halls. They learn the practice of our tradition and learn all the duties that are encompassed within the life of a Buddhist monk, which is basically study of the Dharma, meditation, precepts, and selfless service primarily in the beginning to the monastic community, but also to the lay community who comes to the monastery as well. And if all that goes well, after 5 years minimum, and sometimes it goes longer, I remember in one case it went to 10 years, the person does their second ordination, which we call Dharma transmission, and they become in name, a senior member of the community. However, in fact, they have another 2 years to go. where they are learning the duties of a priest. They would be regarded as a full priest at that point, a full monk, but they're just learning how to do that, how to teach meditation, how to perform ceremonies, and their religious life becomes more focused and more committed than it was before. And should they get through that, and usually if they get that far, the second ordination is the point of no return. You're in there for life after that, as far as we're concerned. 2 years after that, they would actually become a senior member of the monastery and of our order, and they would be able to teach and lead retreats and do counseling and take very serious responsibility in the monastery and help the various monastic offices with guests or sacristy or administration or kitchen or whatever they would be assigned to. So you have, as a monk, you have at least, including the postulancy at the very minimum, you have 8 years of study before you would be regarded as fit to be a teacher. And then, to me, the real challenges start, because learning how to teach is a very difficult matter that one is constantly learning, as you well know. And I think that it takes many years before one learns to do that skillfully and to do as little harm as possible. For every 2 people who enter the monastic sangha, who actually get that far, 1 usually makes it. And so you have a 50% attrition rate, which I think for us is actually quite good. Of the many people who ordained when I started, about half of them are left, which is regarded as a very good record and speaks highly of the teacher. And it is, being a monk is a difficult thing, and doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years takes daily commitment, and the successes are few, the failures are many, and the overwhelming thing that one has to do is be willing to do the practice every day and come back to that and make that one's true joy and commitment. The monks are not a bunch of sour, dried up old what's-its. They're all very, very nice people, and we have I think, what is a happy community and a lot of very fine people there. And they are people, they're human beings. We all have our problems, we all have our stuff, and you can never go beyond your own humanity. You are constantly coming in contact with it. And also, as our community is very good at reminding each other very often that we are all human and imperfect. So for those who would like to do it, it is a wonderful life. And one can also have a very rich and rewarding life living and training as a Buddhist layperson.
Could you speak just a little bit about what you're finding now with the aging factor?
Yes.
And the new building that's just been completed.
Yes.
And then and then the cemetery.
Yes. We have a new building that was the first building that we ever did not build ourselves. All of our buildings we've done ourselves. And this building is our first monastic residence. The original abbey buildings were built in the 1930s and 40s, and now they're getting kind of old. And we built a monastic residence that has 13 rooms in it, although our community is pushing 25. And it was built by a company from soup to nuts, from clearing the ground to hanging the curtains and putting in furniture. And then the monks just moved in, which was radical for us. Our community, when we all started, we were all young, and now the median age is low 50s. And we just had a young man ordain who's 29, but the rest of the monks begin in their mid 40s, and the oldest is 73. So all those of us who built the Shasta Abbey are in our 50s and 60s now. We have 7 monks who are over 60, and we are an aging community, and all are experiencing the joys and sorrows of aging with health and not remembering things as well as we used to. And we also have a cemetery. The Shasta Abbey property is legally zoned as a cemetery. The entire property actually is a cemetery, although you're not allowed to put cremated or buried remains anywhere near some obvious areas like kitchens and septic and that sort of thing. And we all expect to die there and be, most of us will be cremated. And my late master has a special place with a stupa there, which is a Buddhist funeral spire. And it's an ongoing reminder of impermanence, that you're not going to be going on to somewhere else, most of us who are there. And although some of us may change monasteries and or temples, the majority of us will be there until we're dead. And I'm personally quite happy with that. I've lived there for 35 years, and I can't imagine going anywhere else. Although I'm perfectly capable of doing that, if necessary.
What were some of the challenges when your teacher died and you were elected as abbot? Did you find that to be a bit stressful?
It was very challenging. She did a lot of preparatory work. Her health had never been bad. She died of diabetes and was paralyzed for the last 3 years of her life from the waist down, and then the paralysis just inched up her body until she died of a stroke. The community elected me as the abbot in 1996, and I was faced immediately with the task of continuing a religious community and a monastic community with a very integral role for the lay people after the founder, who was, we believe, was a very great person, died. And the footsteps that I had to step in were very big, and my feet were very small in comparison. So I, most importantly, had to keep up my commitment and encourage the community to keep up theirs. And in our order, which she started, which is now called the Order of Buddhist Contemplatives, we had some temples and some 2 monasteries. And as time went on, some of the older senior monks wanted to go and teach in other places and do other things, which is perfectly understandable and reasonable. And I began to do ordinations. I did my first a year or 2 before she died, and then had the interesting experience of realizing that when you are the abbot of a monastery and you're teaching people from that point of view, that you have to go back to square one. And even though I'd had a lot I'd had a lot of experience, I thought, at the time with teaching. I realized that, in fact, if I'd ever thought I knew anything, it was definitely based on chutzpah or hubris. So I feel I've been learning everything over again and still continue to do so to this very day. But finding that one had to keep up one's own and encourage others to keep up their commitment to the place and to the practice. Another was finding my own way of teaching and being able to communicate the Buddha Dharma in a way that people would understand, and learning to be a father, a friend, a monk, and sometimes a parent to a community with adults in it from the age of 29 up to the age of 73, to learn to be kind to everyone, and also to keep our focus on what we had been taught and our eyes looking backward to our traditional practice, but also stepping forward. We have been a monastery of Western people since the very beginning, and being Westerners, Western monastics in a culture which has no idea of what monasticism is, except for the unusual number, for the small number of Catholic monastics, is an unusual thing and presents a series of many challenges. One of the things that we had to do is that Buddhist monks live on dana, they live on donations, and we had to educate our congregation to learn the reciprocal relationship where monks, both male and female, give teaching and will provide monasteries and facilities for people to come to and a place to practice, and to ask people without forcing them in any way or telling them that they should, that if we are going to continue, to ask them to please help to support us. And I have been really amazed, actually, at how generous people are and how kind they are. Over half of our food is donated, and we are able to provide health insurance for everybody in our monastery who is insurable, and our local doctors and hospitals are willing to either provide free care or give us help. And we've learned that if you are willing to practice noble poverty, which is what the founder of our tradition, Zen Master Dogen, taught, that people will respond in kind with generous heart because they want to see the Dharma continue. And we would like to continue that by providing a place for them in order to do that. And where there are people who are dedicated 24 hours a day to doing that and can help them in whatever way they are searching for the Buddha Dharma to do it for themselves. So we have quite a rigorous schedule of retreats, and we have people staying with us all the time, and we seem to be surviving in a nobly poor but happy place so far.
And do you have any animals there?
We do. We have animals. We are a religious sanctuary, which means that if any animals come onto the property, we will adopt them. And we have 16 cats, and we have 5 dogs, and we have 1 parrot, and we have just I have heard from my assistant that we had to trap one of the squirrels because its face was badly damaged. We're not sure what's wrong with it, but we're going to, we've trapped the squirrel, which is one of the tree squirrels. We have thousands of them. And we're going to take it to our vet, who is going to try to help it and see if these injuries are just injuries or if it's suffering from something more serious. And then we're going to try to do what we can to help it and then release it. And we've done that before with one, and it was reasonably successful. But we also have wild animals coming onto the property.
And you mentioned the other night as we were talking that you had goats and actually made cheese at one time?
We had at one time, were given goats. And they, we took them and didn't quite know what to do with them, but we realized that if we took very good care of them, they would give us milk and a cheese, which we lived on because we often didn't have the money to buy those things. And traditionally, monks are not supposed to raise animals, but necessity overcame us under the circumstances, and also we treated them very well. And all of them lived out their natural lives. And we had an agreement that for the kids that they had, that if we couldn't take them, we'd find them a good home. And if a person took one, they would sign a document saying they would never harm it. And if they wanted to, if they couldn't take care of it, they would return it to us, and we would take it back. But our goats, in order to take care of animals responsibly, it needs a lot of time and a lot of care. And as time went on, we just phased out that side of our lives. But they were very wonderful and great teachers for all of us, and very tolerant, too. And we've had, taken on ducks and geese and chickens, and tried to save a lot of beings from slaughter, and had parakeets fly onto our property even once that didn't live very long, but we gave it a happy end of its life. So we try to do our best for them.
Does anybody else have questions that they'd like to ask? Rebecca, want to share? Sheena, how about you? Do you have a question? Did you find this interesting?
Yeah, I definitely did. It seems like a very long time. I didn't really realize how long it would take.
Oh, to become a monk?
Yeah.
In many ways, how long does it take to get to know someone? Do you know them after a month, after 3 months? And time is a wonderful, it either will focus commitment, or it will show that the commitment is better put somewhere else. And if the person is really willing to give their life for what they're going to do, they're going to be willing to spend time at the monastery doing the practice and seeing if it's really right for them. One of the things that I think is very difficult for Americans, I'm not sure if it's true for all Western people, but I've heard that a lot of us have a problem, is with commitment. And this is a very demanding commitment. And when you go into it, it has to be total, or as total as you can make it. And then as you go on, you learn that it has to become even more total than you thought it was. And it has to be the right thing for you. Because there's no point in trying to do something about your suffering when you're miserable and continue to be miserable because you've made the wrong decisions. And actually, we try to help people to make the right decision. And I like to encourage people by saying, you're better off being a first-class layperson than an unhappy monk. And to others, I would say you're much better off being a happy monk than an unhappy layperson. For me, it was completely right. For others, I've I've told people, don't do this. It really wouldn't suit you. Mm-hmm.
And when you would find that it didn't suit them, was it that you would see in them that they would prefer to have a family or have a relationship, or that their answers weren't being met in Buddhism, or?
Both of those things I have seen. Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've seen various variations of that. There are some people we call ordination renunciation of the world. And if a person is still in love with the world in some way or not, then they can't actually leave it, because it's very important to be a volunteer. You need to be a volunteer to practice Buddhism to begin with. And you especially have to be a volunteer in order to renounce the world. If you become a monastic, you're taken at your word. And you do, in fact, renounce the world. You don't live separate from everything and everyone, but you do let go of all of your old ties and commitments in order to have one commitment that is total. And part of the early years of monastic training is really to learn whether or not that commitment that you have made and are continuing to make is going to be complete for you. And I've seen people decide after 10, 15, 20 years that they don't wish to do it anymore. And that can be traumatic for them or for a community. And I've seen it enough so that I know the signs and try to help the person to make a smooth transition if they want to leave, or if they want to deepen their commitment to monastic life, to try to address that in our monastic context. Because when it's right, it's very, very right. And when it isn't right anymore, things can go very sour for the person. And you have a lot of people, you all live in community, and even though when you are a senior monk, you have the luxury of having your own quarters and this kind of thing, it's not like having your own space or your own apartment or your own house in the world. You're living in a family in which you're practicing selfless service and dedicating yourself to the practice of enlightenment for yourself and all sentient beings, and that's a lot of work. So you have to really want to do that in order to keep it alive. But it's possible, it's doable, and it's for those who want to do it, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
What is the day like, for instance, a novice monk? Because I know their day starts a little bit earlier than the senior monk, or at least I remember you saying that.
It gets yes. The novice monk, they the ones who live in the meditation hall, I actually get up before they do. Not quite sure how that ended up that way, but we the usual rising time is 5 in the morning, and the postulants will be up at 4:30, and their job is to sweep and clean the cloister, which is lit. It's there's electricity there, and if there's snow, they will get snow off the paths and put gravel down. And we will have wake up at 5, and then meditation begins at 5:30, and there's 40 minutes of meditation, and then there's sutra recitation for about another 40 minutes to an hour. And then everyone goes off to their work, and we have breakfast, which is in silence in our dining hall. And then we have the activities of the day, which can be work or classes or a Dharma talk or whatever is, or ceremonies, whatever is on the schedule for that particular day. We have our formal noon meal in the meditation hall. for everyone, and we eat according to the traditional style with bowl sets. And we rest a little bit after lunch, and then we have our afternoon, which will be Dharma talk or classes or work or ceremonies, depending on what we're doing. And then there is what is called a medicine meal for those who feel that they need to have some food in the evening, which seems to be particularly important for some of the older monks. We have one who's diabetic who has to eat at certain times. And there is all the monks take turns in cleaning up the kitchen, and then there is a study period after dinner, and then we have an evening meditation, and then everyone goes to bed, usually about 9. And we, during our 5-day retreats, monastic retreats, which we have every once a month, we get up at 4. And we also have 7-day retreats twice a year, which last for, as I said, 7 days, and we get up at 4 and we're going to bed at 9. So we usually get a minimum of about 7 hours of sleep a night, which seems to be enough to keep everybody healthy and awake. And then we have, various retreats during the year, and our calendar changes every 5 days in our monastery is a traditional day where the monks get some extra sleep, and there's no meditation that day, and we all shave. And we wash our robes and do mending, and it's kind of a mend and make do sort of day. That happens every day of the month that has a 4 or a 9 in it. So 4th, 9th, 14th, 19th, 24th, 29th. Twice a month we have recitation of our precepts, which takes a number of hours during the day and proceeds throughout that day. And we close to the public in January so that everyone can get some rest. And we have a slightly more relaxed schedule, although we are getting up in the morning to meditate. And things are, for a contemplative community, we seem to have plenty to do. Work is an ethic for us, so everyone does some kind of work for the community every day. And some of that work is earthy and manual, and some of it is heady. And we have meetings, just like real people. And we have a lot to do. Our life is very full. Yes?
I have 2 questions. Is your monastery strict vegetarian monastery?
It is in the sense that we are not vegan vegetarians, but we drink milk, and we eat free-range eggs, and we also eat cheese. And we are also strict about being vegetarians. We won't accept any meat. There's no alcohol. Don't allow tobacco, and obviously drugs of any kind, unless it's prescribed by a doctor.
As you get older, as I get older, what do you see some of the biggest challenges for an older monastic to face?
I think that the rigors of the practice are always rigorous, and that one has to approach one's age and limitations with kindness and with understanding. That one will not be able to do the things that one could do when one was 20 and 30. Also, I think that it is also necessary to continue to deepen one's commitment and monastic practice throughout the years, and to work on trying to be a a better Buddhist, a better monastic, and in a way that is feasible. And to recognize that the training and practice that we do has no ending. At least that's what the masters teach, and that's what the example of the Buddha gives us. And so because of that, we also have to accept our limitations, but understands that our limitations do not limit us spiritually. And to continue to try to exert ourselves spiritually while understanding that we will grow older and become old and sick and die. And this happened to the Buddha, too, and it happens to every human being. And Buddhism is a religion for human beings. And as one of my colleagues is so fond of reminding people when he gives Dharma talks, he says the Buddha Dharma is for you and for no one else. So one can actually do this practice throughout one's life, even if one is lying in bed and can't do anything else. As long as you can breathe, you can do the practice. And never to give up on oneself or anyone else, because everything is possible.
Well, that's it. That was my interview with Reverend Echo, the abbot of Shasta Abbey. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like more information about Shasta Abbey, please go to their website, www.shastaabbey.org. If you'd like more information about me, my website is Kusala, KUSALA.info. And please feel free to email me. I'm happy to receive your emails. I like the feedback, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. So until the next time, until the next podcast, be happy, be peaceful, and most of all, be free from suffering.